Good morning. Um, Here we are in an overcast Southern California day. It's great to have it not getting warm already. And But busy days ahead. Tomorrow we've got the Blue Denim and Lace group coming over to our house. And then Sunday night we have our second of our summer socials. Sunday night we'll be having an outdoor service, a big bring your own kind of a snack bar buffet. Everybody bring their own snacks, finger foods, and we'll have drinks and snacks and a lot of extra music. I think there's four or five, maybe more than that, specials to be sung. A lot of singing with the guitars or with the. We'll have a couple of keyboards outside, and if the Lord give us an evening like this, it'd be nice. But we don't get many evenings. This is morning overcast, but it's a good thing. And you that are across the country. There's something called dry air, which we have. It's not real bad, but it's warm here, but it's different. I've got a daughter in Florida and friends in Iowa and Illinois and across the country, and of course Texas. And I'll take our dry heat, even though it's still hot. But anyway, it's good to be where we are. I want to encourage you during the summertime to think about soul winning on Thursday night. I know the majority of our folks go out Saturdays, but on Thursday night it's 10 degrees, 15 degrees cooler, and we get together and just real quick, 6:45, meet up together, pair up, and typically go out as a group to one area. Sometimes people are out following up on their Sunday school class or prospects or whatever, but Thursday night would be a good alternative for you now. Right now we don't have anyone coming with babies or where there's a need for childcare. But if for the summer that would be a help to you, talk to me or some of the other staff and we'll arrange it, because we want to make it easy to get out soul winning. And the kids love being there. You can bring your kids every day to church. They'd love it. And they like being a part of things. So anyway, just consider Saturday morning's fine. We get out, people get saved. But it is a lot hotter on Saturday mornings. During this time of year, just for these few weeks, and of course, people go soul winning in Iraq and Baghdad and Pakistan, and people think about going soul winning in the rain. Well, what do people do that live in Oregon where it rains all year round? You go soul winning in the rain. Here it rains half dozen days a year, maybe. So we've had quite a bit of rain the last couple of years, but a lot of years, I think if you went over a decade, our annual rainfall is like 3 inches or 4 inches or something amazing like that. And that's why it's brown unless you water. But if it weren't for the liberals, we got plenty of water in California. But anyway, obviously things grow. There's purple flowered shrubs behind me. They're called a rose of Sharon. And it's a beautiful, no trouble thing, except I have to trim it back some because they get kind of bushy. And they're probably in a bigger yard than I have, but there's 4 of them back there. They're beautiful. When they're little, it looks like we need more of them. And then when they get big, I think, wow, these are taking over. I wanted to mention a couple things today, starting out in the gospel. Well, starting on Proverbs. One of the things that if you're a part of our church, you've heard me say it and over the years, over and over. But it's so important that we stay on track. A drifting person, a leaf blown with the wind. Paul talked about. If you can become doctrinally, theologically, just blowing here and there. A ship without an anchor drifts with the tides and with the currents or the winds. And that's not how God wants us to be. And let thine eyes look straight on and turn not to the right hand nor to the left. And here in Proverbs chapter 4, verse 18, it says this: the path of the just is as the shining light that shineth more and more unto the perfect day. Now, I'll look at a verse or two in John in a minute, but the path of the just is as the shining light that shineth more and more to the perfect day. When you walk in the light that God has revealed to you, what happens is, as you walk in that light, God says, oh, you're obeying and you're doing what I've asked you to do. I'll brighten the bulb. And then you walk a little further and obeying and walking the way he asked you to walk, and he turns the light up a little brighter. And the more you walk in the light, that light shines more and more unto the perfect day. And But the opposite is also true, and I probably see our dogs running around out here this morning. They hear me down here. They probably think I'm cooking breakfast or something. But um, the um, the opposite is true. When God reveals something to you, and you say no, I don't want to go that way. What happens is then God turns the light down, and you find yourself walking more and more in darkness. And I'm talking about Christians. Of course, the unsaved walk in darkness because they don't have the light of the world. But a preacher, faithful church member, it is so just imperative that we yield to what God shows us. And there are things I have perhaps learned in almost 50 years of Bible reading, and those doctrinal issues and some of those things, they're not that big an issue that changes my walk from day to day. But when God shows us something, when God reveals it to us, and we don't say yes, and it doesn't mean we say yes right away. I knew my hair should be cut shorter a long time before, not a long time, but months before I got my hair cut. It was a big adjustment for all through high school I had longer hair, and then got around Christians and reading the Bible. I thought, the Bible does say it's a shame for a man to have long hair, and all right, and then little by little, and it got cut shorter and shorter, and finally one day over the years and off the collar. And you could grow at your own pace, but the issue was I had acknowledged it as true, and then little by little I was yielding to it, and God is so merciful. Psalms 103, He knoweth our frame, He remembereth that we're dust, and so God knows how weak we are. He knows we're frail, and I think of the boys and girls in our church. Man, we got the best kids. I just love being with our kids. I didn't get to go up to junior camp this year, but I like going up, even if it's just for an afternoon to the junior camp. I'll be at teen camp next week, 10 days away. And I love being with our young people. But they hear a lot growing up. But see, just because they hear it and get in their head, it needs to become their decision. They need to decide that. And so, again, the light's on, and they see it. Now they got to decide, am I going to walk in that light? And whether it be obeying your parents, or whether it be being honest, or confessing of sin, or whatever it might be, just working hard, not being lazy. There's a lot of things we have to learn in life, and all of us have character flaws, but we can at least acknowledge this is right and this is wrong, and because God says it. And so it's so important. And I know good men, good preachers, who as the years passed, maybe they felt like, if I stick with that old-fashioned fundamental things, I'm going to hinder my church growth. And so they just say, we're just not going to teach and preach that. Well, then they feel guilty. So then they have to teach against it. And so whether it be music or outward appearance or affiliations, where we go socially in the world around us, preachers will, let's just take gambling. And Las Vegas, it's a big, Southern California's got casinos, Indian casinos, and then there's Vegas is not too far away. And I don't see that preaching on gambling is going to hurt your church growth, not nearly as much as movies and our dress and our hair and those kind of things. But whatever it might be, if a guy says, this is hindering my church growth, so I'm not going to preach on that, I'm just going to pretend it doesn't exist. Well, pretty soon he's turning the dimmer light down, and pretty soon he's going to find himself teaching against that thing in order to salve his conscience, because you can't just ignore truth. You get stuck with this thing in your head of this is true, and so what you have to do is you have to say, it's not true, it's not true, it's not true. And then a pastor begins teaching on something that he's been pastoring a decade or longer and never mentioned this area. What's happened? He's changing. Why is he changing? Because he said no to something, and little by little the dimmer light is going, and his path, the path of the just, is a shining light that shines more and more. Well, the path of the unjust, those who don't listen, is dimming more and more unto a dark day. Look at John chapter 11. And the reason I think people grow in a great way and then suddenly make dramatic change is because they have they got saved, or they got into a church, a good Bible preaching church, soul winning, separated, Bible believing, and they get started on this path. And but it takes character. It takes denial. Jesus said, if any man will follow me, let him deny himself. The very first thing of discipleship is self-denial. And then taking up a cross, which means you're gonna hurt. You're gonna suffer for some things. And so this is a lot of preacher stuff, but I think church members are exactly the same. So here's some guy gets going to our church like ours, and maybe he goes soul winning. I was thinking right now of a great guy in our church. Just love this guy. And he finally went out soul winning one Saturday or Thursday night, I can't remember which. And he told me on Sunday, he said, unbelievable. We were out and somebody got saved. It was the greatest day ever. He was so excited. But life and pressure and the devil works on you, and then he didn't come back out. Well, now am I going to keep the light on and keep going soul winning, or am I going to get that dimmer switch and say it doesn't matter? We don't all need to do this, and preachers will do this. They'll start picking up some ridiculous Calvinistic doctrine, and that's because they've turned the dimmer light on. There's some things they're not willing to surrender to and walk in the light, and so. Here's somebody that's coming to our church, and a church like ours, and lots of good churches, and he'll be soul winning and maybe separated. Then he'll just decide or maybe his wife, it could be the husband who says, well, there's just nothing wrong with having some beer now and then, or the wife's got her area, whatever, and so they start to turn and follow what they see in the scriptures, and the light's getting brighter, and they're growing in grace, and they're learning. But it is a life of denial. It is a life of making us misfits, and that's why you're narrowing your fellowship of friends, because pretty soon, as the light gets brighter, you see more clearly, and they don't want to see what you see, and you're awkward, and they're awkward, and it's just a very difficult. It's denial, and there's a price, there's a cross. And so here this guy's going to our church, or his family, and he or his wife, whatever, or maybe sometimes a teenager. They're not going. They are not going to this separated fundamental Baptist church, and they just, all their friends are in the world, they're in a public school, their parents let the kids have all these associations outside the church, and out in the world, unsaved friends, unsaved activities, and they're looking at this life of denial, or this life of leisure, and they don't walk in the light. They begin to walk away from the light toward the darkness. What happens? God turns a dimmer light, and that's why you'll hear people say, I went there for a while, and I just don't see it. I heard the preaching. I was there. I know what they teach. I was there, and I'm telling you, it's all a big lie, or whatever they want to say. You say, how could they say that? Well, they can say it because the light got turned down, and they can't see it. The light got turned. God turns the light down. Look at John 11:9. Jesus said, are there not 12 hours in the day? If a man walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of this world. But if a man walk in the night, he stumbleth, because there is no light in him. And so when you walk in darkness, you begin to stumble. And now what happens? So somebody starts walking in the light. I'm talking about saved people, good Christian people, people that I love, and they're doing well, and they're growing in grace. They're reading their Bible, and this is especially true of pastors. And they're standing straight, separated, Bible-believing, King James Bible, soul-winning, and they're walking in the light. And in verse 10, verse 9, he says, if he walk in the day, he stumbleth not, because he seeth the light of the world. He begins to see clearly, and he doesn't stumble. It's a smooth path. Doesn't mean there's not persecution. Doesn't mean there's not hardship. There's cancer, car accidents, financial trouble, because we're in this world. But he that walks in the night, he stumbles. Wife, children, himself, he gets tired of the pressure, tired of saying no. And so they begin to drift from the light, and they start walking a little bit more toward the darkness. And they don't see. It says they don't see in verse 10. If you walk in the night, he stumbleth, because there's no light in him. They can't see. They begin to walk. And I know preachers good. I know some great missionaries and some great pastors who went from living a good, godly, separate life, and now they're saying social drinking's okay. That's a big jump. Pastors who went from being good soul winners to teaching Calvinism and dropping soul winning in the church. Well, the problem is there's some people started coming to the church, and if he preached on liquor, he's going to lose those members. And then if he preached on soul winning, there's people who are coming to his church, maybe a guy who's got some money and some esteem in the community, and he can be a help to build in the church. That guy ain't going to go out and he'll humble himself and go soul winning. It's humiliating to go soul winning. People shut the door on you and chew you out and say, "What are you doing here?" And not very often. It's rare. In our neighborhood, usually they don't open the door in our area. But a preacher begins. He wants those members, and now he's not walking in the light. He's in the path of the just as a shining light. He begins to turn a little bit from that way to keep those members. You've got some good member that's social drinking. And they come, "Now, Pastor, I understand being drunk is wrong and being a drunkard is wrong, but look, having a little wine with my dinner or a little wine before bed, Paul even told Timothy, take a little wine for thy stomach's sake." But the pastor doesn't want to lose those tithes and the offering. He doesn't want to lose that good-looking together family. I mean, half his church, they're poor and they're misfits. And by the way, that is the people who follow Jesus. And he had a doctor thrown in there now and then, but they were rough men. They were fishermen. They had their colorful vocabulary. When Peter cursed and denied Jesus, I'm not sure what he said, but I'm going to say it wasn't good. So they stopped preaching. They just stopped preaching on booze. Well, now if they've stopped preaching on booze, now pretty soon they're going to have to justify the fact they've stopped preaching on booze in their own heart. They have a conscience. And now he starts saying, now instead of years ago, he's preaching a sermon against liquor. Now he's saying, well, a little liquor's not bad. Oh, the tragedy. And you know what's really sad is the light is growing dim. Now he sees less. And so he's going to stumble in some other area, and the light will go more dim, and he'll stumble in another area. I'm not saying he's not going to have a happy marriage and a church, or he's not going to have his job out in the world, and he can't sit in church, sing the hymns or whatever. But pretty soon, you'll see the platform change. You'll see the music change. You'll see the appearance of people change. Why? Because it's getting darker. And I just want to encourage you, walk in the light, stay straight. If God's revealed something to you, jump on it, stay right with it, don't bend. And if you feel like sometimes I'm tired, join the club. You think it's like constant pressure. It is. You're in a dirty old world. I mean, we live in a world of deceit and lying where getting the money is the big deal. As long as I get money, it's okay. I don't care if I cheat a little bit, hurt somebody along the way. What a mess this world is. And it's a world of denial. And it's a world where, if you're not careful, you can look at your tithes and your offerings to the ministry and think, I could have bought a new car this year, cash. And you start looking at these things, and then you start to drift away and watch it. God turns the dimmer light. The light can shine more and more, or the light can grow dim, and that's in anybody's life. Dr. Howes told me the story of a preacher. He'd preached every year for this pastor, 20 years, every year, and he was in a routine. In January he was in this church, and February he's in that church. And people like the routine, like a fall conference or a spring conference or whatever. I preach for Brother Alan Donnelly most every March at his Old Paths conference. And until he gets tired of me, I keep telling him I'm not a conference speaker. I'm just a regular old pastor. I'm nobody special. But he says, as long as you're alive, I want you here. And that's his mercy to me. But I love Brother Donnelly. And he's building a great church in Oklahoma. It's just exciting to see what God's doing there. But anyway, Dr. Howes telling me, he said this church, a good church, large church, I'm going to guess 1,000, 2,000. And he said, in 1 year, the pastors got in the pulpit and said, folks, I've pushed you too hard. I've made too much of a big deal about soul winning and separations and standards of lifestyle. And I just want to apologize. I've pushed way too much. Well, he stopped preaching on all that stuff. Well, I'd never been to that church until it happened. I was in that state for something not having to do with preaching. And I was going to be there on a Sunday. I just needed church to go to. So I'd heard of this church. So I went there. It was like BBs in a shoebox. big, beautiful auditorium that used to be packed and just had a handful of people in it. And it was a dead service. Not a bad sermon, but just no spirit, no life, no joy, and no invitation. I mean, they had an invitation, but no response. And I thought, well, I'm not coming back here Sunday night. And I found some church using somebody's gym and setting up, when I got there, they were setting up chairs or pews or whatever they had, and they were just setting up. Then afterwards, they unset it up, and I thought, and it was vibrant. It was exciting, and the gym area was like a gym that they were in of sorts, and it was full of people and excited. They didn't have a nice, big, beautiful auditorium, but they had Jesus. You know why? Because one was walking in the light, and one had turned the dimmer switch down. And look, let's stay fresh. When God speaks to you, keep on it, and let's just stay straight, stay walking in the light. Young people, as God reveals things to you, yield to God. Do what He asks you to do, and it might take you may wrestle a little bit. We all do that some, but wrestle to get right. Don't wrestle against it. You could acknowledge this is the right way to go, and I'm just afraid or I'm tired or whatever. But keep your head knowing it's the right way, and God will bless us. And we've been 41 years here now, and I have no regrets for staying straight on the old paths.